So today I want to make a card like this. When you open it, it's flat like this, and then it opens and takes the title page and makes the lid of the box inside. So this idea I have from Jennifer McGuire. I don't know which video it is. I'm gonna do a different size though. The cool thing in Switzerland is I can do whatever card size I want because the postage is pretty much the same a lot. So I could send this one and it's the same as if I would make this size. I'm gonna make this size though. This is a European A6 and this will be an American A2. So as you can see, the American A2 is a bit wider, not much, and a bit shorter. So that is the difference. Just so you know what kind of size I'm making. I'm using a normal A4 page to make this size, and you might be able to use your normal double or 4 times this size page to make the same thing. Yeah. Okay. I want to do this as the title page, as the front panel, because I don't want it to have that bend in here. So when I open this, it's gonna stick up, but that's fine. So, and different size. There's gonna be this happy birthday on it. It's from Mama Elephant. I'm gonna have the background with embossing powder and this cool stamp, background stamp from Colorado Craft Company, but they don't make that anymore. Then on the inside I want to have this mermaid. It's a card for a girl, and I want to have this lovely frame around or to look in. It's a pity one doesn't see the stitched details, and there's even a heart on it and stuff. But I like wonky frames. So that's going to be the window to look inside. It's from Tracy Hay. And this is the color I picked. First, I'm marking the middle of the page to part it into 2. I want to make a top fold card, and I only need half this paper. Then I score it in half. I have a marking there with a heart, which shows what's half. Then I see how much space I need for the window, and I make a flap on the side, which is about 1 inch. And then I do the same on the second piece and add another glue flap, which is about 1/4 of 1 inch. Now I fold over the main part, and with the other part I can cut off the rest after the glue flap. And on the other side I just cut off a tiny little strip. It's 1 millimeter. I don't know what that will be, 1/16 of 1 inch or something. Because with a score line on the main card, you lose about that much for the other card. So when you cut off that little strip, it fits nicely later on. And when I fold it up, I have my A6 or A2 card back. Now I realized I didn't have to cut it apart at first because I made the same exact score lines on both parts. So this time I did that at the same time in the middle and the part that folds over. And now I just take one of those two after I cut them apart, and I add the glue flap, which is about 1/4 of 1 inch, cut off the rest, and again cut off a tiny little strip just to make space for the score line on the main panel. And then I fold it and see if it fits, and it does. And when I fold it flat again, it's gonna be the same size as before, but it's gonna be the portrait size, no, landscape size. Now I have this leftover piece which I can use for the layers inside. So with the first I cut it apart, not in the middle, so I have a longer and a shorter layer in the middle. And also I see where I want to put my window into that pop-up frame, pop-up panel. So I cut that out about in the middle. And then I take my other card and also think about the layers. Here you see how it comes with a window and the layers behind. And then I take the other one. I found a window that fits nicely. I want an even frame around and not too thin so it holds it up. So this one was very good. Then I have this layer cardstock, and I realized I can just cut out my layers right on there, my borders. So I put my borders on that piece of paper, and I make sure that one is a bit higher than the other, so I have layers that show up behind each other. And I can just put it through my die cut machine, take it off, and then you see that lovely stitched detail. It's a wavy border die from Lawn Fawn.
Stitched.
And now I already have those layers ready. Okay, now we go on with the embossing. Heat embossing for the main panel. I am using my anti-static powder tool because I'm using Versamark ink, and it's also I just want the embossing powder to stick on the Versamark ink because I want to color this panel after having heat embossed it because it shows up so nicely. Now I use clear gloss on this because it's a white underground. I could also have used white powder, embossing powder. And then when I go over it with ink oxides, then the part where I embossed it will stay white. And that is a very cool effect. I do the other one the other way around with a background stamp. So I have them in both layouts, both directions, because I thought that would look nice. You would barely see it here. The clear gloss is hard to see, but it turns a little gray here on the footage once it's melted. And then I go on with cracked pistachio, peacock feather, and mermaid lagoon, uncharted mariner. And here will be some music because it's self-explanatory. For decorating, I'm using my go-to Marianne design sea critters. They're so lovely with the seahorse and stuff. Also use my old colored scraps and things. And took about an hour or two to make all those little things because I didn't know what I want to use. And I always put them aside and use them in other projects. Then we go and adhere some stuffs. So the main panel and the window thingy, you need to have it flush on top. It's just gonna work out very well when you do it this way. Then I just fix it a bit with some washi tape so it stays there. And then I can put double-sided tape on the bottom part. I also check again if it's really flush there with the glue tab bent over. And then I can adhere. I do 2 lines of score tape, and then I can just fold it over, and it's nicely adhered and just goes in front of that score line or fold line of the main panel. So there, because we cut off that tiny little strip, that just works out there. Then that's very cool, because I often struggled with that. with bulk and stuff's not bending. And now I can take off the washi tape. I put on some score tape on that glue flap, but leave it open for a bit longer because it's easy. Also, I need to add the layers in there first, and it's easier to decorate when it's still open. But it's going to be very easy to just close that up. Now I need to think about where I put my layers. One I will stick right onto the frame, and one needs a pop-up mechanism in the middle. So I see where I want to put it. I have that distance there from the background to the layer, and I want to do that first score line about that size, which is about 1/4 of an inch. It's 1 centimeter in German. And then I see how high my layer is. I mark it there, and then I go lower. I mean, I measured where the lowest point is of my layer. Then I go again with the same distance as before, that 1/4 inch, and I add a glue flap. Like this, I make sure with measuring how high the lowest point of the layer is, that this mechanism is clearly not higher than my layer. Then I fold all those lines into the same direction, and this is how it's gonna go in there. Then I just cut it into 2, because you could put this in the middle of the layer, but I want to put one to the edge, to each edge. So now I have to put score tape on all the flaps that are on the outside, on the most outside. There's that tiny little flap behind the middle flap that gets nothing, that's just the distance holder. So I take the side where there's one score line, take off the liner paper, and add it to the edge, to the fold of the card, and then that is already adhered. So I make it flush to the side and just in front of that score line or fold line, just before that. Again, to make sure that it's gonna fold and it's gonna work out fine. And then we fold over the 2 parts, both of them together, take off the liner paper and close the card, and this will adhere them at the right space. And ta-da! There it is. Very cool. Okay, then I want to add on my layers, the right one, not the small one. And I do that with glue because I like to have a little wiggle room. Because when you put it on and then you close that card, a layer that you put on flush with the bottom is always slipping up about the same amount that we cut off, about 1/16 of an inch. It's nearly 1 millimeter. I think it's less. But you need that in order for it to fold nicely. So when I put it down, it goes up a bit. Just a tiny little bit down there. And that only works when you do that with liquid glue. And then once I straighten it again, I can really rub it on, and now that should hold. Then I will add the second layer on the front. I am gonna put the glue on the frame. Make sure I'm not too high with the glue. That's why I measure quickly. And then I put it, I always put it flush with the bottom. So I put it on the ground of the card, and then I fold it down, and through that it slips up a bit again. This little less than 1 millimeter. Okay, it just needs space in that fold there. There is a tiny little gap between that layer and the bottom part. Okay, so that really helps. Now I can start thinking about the decoration. I do find that so hard. That's why I rarely film it, actually, because it stresses me out to do that on camera, because it feels like I need to decide very quickly. It's going to be boring, and I'm not going to show you the whole process. But I want to have this mermaid in the middle, in the center of attention there, and that is handy to have it still open, so I can open and close it and reach my stamped image very nicely. Then I do love those jellyfish. They just fit anywhere. So I just add that in the corner there. That was a very, very quick decision. Also, the seahorses always fit somewhere. And that seagrass is amazing. I haven't found another die cut set that has such a cool seaweed. Lawn Fawn has something, or with a succulents, but this one is my go-to for any underwater card because it's so lovely. It's so long. All the others are not so long. Now I will add a seahorse somewhere, maybe. I think about wrapping it around this other seaweed because it's so cute. It can hold itself there, and I think that's what they do a lot. But when I put it there, it would be so crooked. I did not like that, so I didn't add it there. In the end, I added somewhere else. Okay. So if there's one thing I cannot do, it's decorating on camera. That's so hard. It's like puzzling on camera. I don't find a piece then. Because it's stressful to decide, and then there's this time pressure, or somehow it doesn't work. So I added fish in the background too, and this seaweed grass thing. That's just in the air there. And then I also added a seahorsey and put his tail behind this thing. So it's kind of cool how it looks like it's hanging on to it. And then I also added those two fish. And that is that. I do hope that fits. And now I just need to close it up and add my front panel, where I just added two fish in a different color. So, but I think it looks lovely, even though I forgot the speckles here. Okay, so let's close this thing up. As we prepared everything so lovely, it's going to be very easy. You just really score that line again. Also makes it easier to take off that liner paper, take it off and close the card, and the mechanism is done. That is so cool when you can just close it and done. No thinking, no measuring. And it works, so that is awesome. And then we want to glue on the front panel, but we need to pay attention to just put the glue up there and not on the under part, because we want this to be able to fold down. So add the glue on the main panel, not on the front panel, because you can see how far you need to put your glue, or score tape, or however you want to adhere. And then you just put it on there, make sure it holds, and that is that card finished. I am very particular with my glue. I like it very well adhered. I also like it when you put glue on paper, and glue on paper you can make kind of like a chipboard. I do like that. I like it sturdy. And now when I open this, I see, oh, there's a white strip. That is not pretty. So I'm gonna take the same paper again, the main color of the paper, and cut off a strip to cover up that top part. Okay, so let's do that. Get that strip, add it on with glue, and in the end it looks a bit plain, so in the end I will put some fish there, and I think it's on the pictures I have. This card is already gone. I did make this card on Thursday because I had to put it in the letterbox on Thursday evening or Friday morning, because it needed to just go right away, because it needed to arrive on Tuesday, and normally Monday would be enough, but the post is not as reliable anymore, so I had to send it on Friday. So it was a last-minute card. I'm adding my stamp on the back, and then that is that card completely done. I also finished the second card. It looks very much like the first one, just in the other orientation. And on the inside, it is not as deep as the other one, so there's not as much light in there. It's a bit dark in the box itself, but I think I like how it turned out. And now I thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next one.